David Renard is the transport spokesperson for the local government association who want these powers to be rolled out. Tom Cotton is the head of licensing and infrastructure at the Road Haulage Association. Thank you both for joining us this morning. David, so tell us exactly what you're calling for.
Well, we want, whilst we accept that most lorry drivers are law-abiding and responsible, there's clearly a minority who ignore weight restrictions, don't use dedicated HGV sat-navs, and we've seen that they get stuck under bridges or block roads or even crash into homes. And at the moment, local residents are pretty powerless to do anything, and local councils don't have those powers. So whilst the police have some powers, we would want the councils to have them as well so that we can deal with this problem.
What sort of powers?
Well, at the moment, it's possible for a court to fine anything from £100 to £1,000 fine. So we would want the same powers as the police to be able to take action. We know the police's resources are quite stretched. If councils have those powers as well, then we can perhaps collectively tackle the road lorry drivers.
Tom, does this sound fair enough from your side at the Road Haulage Association that, most lorries, they're very well behaved, but if there are some errant drivers, then they should be penalised?
Well, certainly our members regard this as a cash cow. They're the most highly trained drivers after blue light services drivers. They're also accountable to the traffic commissioners and can lose their vocational licences if they transgress. And something I think that's been totally overlooked here is that 98% of everything consumed by all consumers, and that's all food and all medicine as well, at some point moves by road freight. So it has to move. There is no other way to do it. Now, also interestingly, last year, the National Infrastructure Commission, in their Future of Freight report, identified freight blindness by local authorities in failing to plan for road freight. So essentially, this is long-term investment that hasn't happened by local authorities into road freight. It's compounded by poor signage, and we have so much evidence about poor, dirty signage that hasn't been maintained and missing signage as well. And just to substantiate the cash cow bit, in London in 2016, local authorities raised £606 million from transgressions by road users. And in Hammersmith, one junction alone netted £3.2 million in fines in 3 years. So we just see this as cash generation by local authorities. And local authorities actually need to do something to support road freight and provide proper parking and proper facilities across the board.
Let me put that to David. You're just trying to make money here.
No, that's certainly not the case. Let me give you an example in my own town. We have a very low bridge. We have an unbelievable amount of signage in front of it, indicating that it's a low bridge. And yet every year we get lorries stuck under there. The drivers just ignore the instructions which are there. This is about ensuring that the roads can keep moving. And our residents are frankly fed up with heavy goods vehicles ignoring the signs and causing mayhem on the roads.
Tom, you've got to concede this is some and some, right? So the rules are there. The rules should not be broken. There needs to be penalties if they are broken. Very often fining people is the best way to do that. So surely it's about looking at when and where.
Well, certainly from our perspective, the police have ample powers. I mentioned earlier the traffic commissioners. And drivers can actually lose their vocational licences. They don't lose their car licence, but they lose their licence to drive HGVs. And once a driver is convicted, they are obliged to notify the traffic commissioner. So potentially these drivers can lose their jobs. This isn't like a normal car driver who just receives a £30 fine and then pays it and the slate's clean. Lorry drivers potentially will lose their licences. So it is incredibly well regulated already, and as I mentioned earlier, we see this as councils and local authorities at the moment can't raise the funds to do lots of things they want to do, and London can raise £606 million in a year, and I think other local authorities see this as a cash cow and a way to raise revenue.
David, let me put it to you, instead of fining lorry drivers, why don't you do more to help them, as Tom has suggested? It's about the infrastructure, and you could make it easier and you could have better signage.
Well, I think most councils do have the appropriate signage in place, and if the Road Haulage Association feel there are certain areas where that's not appropriate, then I would urge them to take it up with the relevant council. Certainly in my own area, we have lots of signage, all we want is for those small number of drivers who are not following the rules to follow the rules. If we don't make any money out of this and the roads keep moving, then we'll be delighted.
Tom, is that the case, that the signage is adequate?
Anna, can I follow that up?
Yes.
I'm actually helping local authorities who have problems in Staffordshire and Buckinghamshire and elsewhere. I'd be delighted to help in Kent. And I've actually gone round and done the survey of the signage there and find it inadequate. Essentially, you have people who don't drive lorries putting the signage up in local authorities. It has to be at the right height. It has to be spaced away from junctions. And where we have the bridge strike aspect, the signage often is only about 100 metres from the bridge. It needs to be much further back, and there needs to be a place for the lorries to be able to turn around. They're huge, much bigger than cars. And sadly, local authorities no longer have people with that expertise and experience. And I'm very happy to go to any local authority and do a survey of the area and highlight the deficits. And virtually, I can't think of an occasion where I haven't been to a site and found a problem with the signage. So I think dirty, missing, inadequate signage, and I'm sure your listeners probably driving around Kent now can see signs that haven't been cleaned. And I've seen signs, speed restriction signs, absolutely green, and you can hardly see the speed limit behind. So local authorities really do need to get a grip and get their act together.
David, are you going to take Tom up on that offer he's offering to help you this morning?
Absolutely. I'm sure all my colleagues in councils around the country would be delighted to have that advice and support. And if there are any issues, then I hope we can work on them together.
I tell you what, you guys keep talking behind the scenes, and Tom, if you could come to Kent, I think that would be particularly useful as well. Goudhurst, I think, is screaming out for some instruction there. Thank you both for discussion. Tom Cotton, Head of Licensing and Infrastructure Policy at the Road Haulage Association, and David Renard there, Transport Spokesperson for the Local Government Association, disagreeing on whether we have adequate signage here in Kent, but offering to work together. How beautiful.